This is Chapter 20, The Hour of Triumph. Special announcement, said the loudspeaker in a pompous voice. The management of the fair takes great pleasure in presenting Mr. Homer L. Zuckerman and his famous pig. The truck bearing this extraordinary animal is now approaching the infield. Kindly stand back and give the truck room to proceed. In a few moments the pig will be unloaded in the special judging ring in front of the grandstand, where a special award will take place. Will the crowd please make way? Let the truck pass. Thank you. Wilbur trembled when he heard this speech. He felt happy but dizzy. The truck crept along at a slow speed. Crowds of people surrounded it, and Mr. Arable had to drive very carefully in order not to run over anybody. At last he managed to reach the judge's stand. Avery jumped and lowered the tailgate. "I'm scared to death," said Mr. Zuckerman. "Hundreds of people are looking at us." "Cheer up," said Mrs. Arable. "This is fun." "Unload your pig, please," said the loudspeaker. "All together now, boys," said Mr. Zuckerman. Several men stepped forward from the crowd to help lift the crate. Avery was the busiest helper of all. "Tuck your shirt in, Avery," cried Mrs. Zuckerman, "and tighten your belt. Your pants are coming down." "Can't you see I'm busy?" he said in disgust. "Look," said Fern, "there's Henry." "Don't shout, Fern, and don't point." "Can I please have money?" said Fern. "Henry invited me to go on the Ferris wheel again, only I don't think he has any money left. He ran out." Mrs. Arable opened her handbag. "Here," she said. "Here's 40 cents. Now don't get lost and come back to our regular meeting spot by the pig pen." Fern raced off, ducking and dodging through the crowd in search of Henry. "The Zuckerman pig is now being taken from his crate," boomed the voice of the loudspeaker. "Stand by for an announcement." Templeton crouched under the straw at the bottom of the crate. "What a lot of nonsense," he said. "What a lot of fuss about nothing." Over in the pig pen, silent and alone, Charlotte rested, her two front legs embraced her egg sac. Charlotte could hear everything that was said on the loudspeaker, and the words gave her courage. This was her hour of triumph. As Wilbur came down out of the crate, the crowd clapped and cheered. Mr. Zuckerman took off his cap and bowed. Lurvy pulled out his big handkerchief from his pocket and wiped his sweat from the back of his neck. Avery knelt in the dirt by Wilbur's side, busily stroking him and showing off. Mrs. Zuckerman and Mrs. Arable stood in the back of the truck. "Ladies and gentlemen," said the loudspeaker, "we now present Mr. Homer L. Zuckerman's distinguished pig. The fame of this unique animal has spread to the far corners of the earth, attracting many valuable tourists to our state. Many of you will recall that the never-forgotten day of summer when the writing appeared mysteriously in the spider's web on Mr. Zuckerman's barn, calling the attention of all to the sundry fact that this pig was completely out of the ordinary. This miracle has never fully been explained, although learned men had visited the Zuckerman's pig pen to study and observe the phenomenon. In the last analysis, we simply know we're dealing with supernatural forces here, and we should all feel proud and grateful. In the words of the spider's web, ladies and gentlemen, this is some pig." Wilbur blushed. He stood still and tried to look his best. "This magnificent animal," continued the loudspeaker, "is truly terrific. Look at him, ladies and gentlemen. Note the smoothness and whiteness of the coat, the spotless skin, the healthy pink glow of the ears and snout." "It's the buttermilk," whispered Mrs. Arable to Mrs. Zuckerman. "Note the general radiance of the animal. Then remember the day that radiant appeared clearly in the web. Whence came this mysterious writing? Not from the spider, we can rest assured of that. Spiders are clever at weaving webs, but needless to say they cannot write." "Oh, they can't, can they?" murmured Charlotte to herself. "Ladies and gentlemen," said the loudspeaker, "I must not take any more of your valuable time. On behalf of the governors of the fair, I have the honor of awarding a special prize of $25 to Mr. Zuckerman, together with a handsome bronze medal suitably engraved, in token of our appreciation of the part played on this pig, this radiant, this terrific, this humble pig, in attracting so many visitors to the county fair." Wilbur had been feeling dizzier and dizzier through this long complimentary speech, and when the crowd suddenly began to cheer and clap, he fainted away. His legs collapsed, his mind went blank, and he fell to the crowd unconscious. "What's wrong?" said the loudspeaker. "What's going on, Zuckerman? What's the trouble with your pig?" Avery was kneeling by Wilbur's head, stroking him. Mr. Zuckerman was dancing about, fanning him with his cap. "He's all right. He gets these spells. He's just modest and can't take the praise." "Well, we can't give a prize to a dead pig. It's never been done." "He isn't dead," hollered Zuckerman. "He's fainted. He gets embarrassed very easily. Run for some water, Lurvy." Lurvy sprang from the judge's ring and disappeared. Templeton poked up through the straw. He noticed that the end of Wilbur's tail was within reach. Templeton grinned. "I'll tend to this," he chuckled. He took Wilbur's tail in his mouth and bit it just as hard as he could bite. The pain revived Wilbur. In a flash he was on his feet. "Ouch!" he screamed. "Hooray!" yelled the crowd. "He's up! The pig's up! Good work, Zuckerman! That's some pig!" Everyone was delighted. Mr. Zuckerman was the most pleased of all. He sighed with relief. Nobody had seen Templeton. The rat did his work well. And now one of the judges climbed into the ring with the prizes. He handed Mr. Zuckerman 2 $10 bills and a $5 bill. Then he tied the medal around Wilbur's neck. He shook hands with Mr. Zuckerman, and Wilbur blushed. Avery put out his hand, and the judge shook hands with him too. The crowd cheered. A photographer took Wilbur's picture. A great feeling of happiness swept over the Zuckermans and the Arabels. This was the greatest moment in Mr. Zuckerman's life. It was deeply satisfying to win a prize in front of lots of people. As Wilbur was being shoved back into his crate, Lurvy came charging through carrying the pail of water. His eyes had a wild look. Without hesitating, he dashed the water at Wilbur. In excitement, he missed his aim, and the water went all over Mr. Zuckerman and Avery. They got soaking wet. "For goodness sake!" bellowed Mr. Zuckerman, who was really drenched. "What ails you, Lurvy? Can't you see the pig is all right?" "You asked for water," said Lurvy. "I didn't ask for a shower," said Mr. Zuckerman. The crowd roared with laughter. Finally, Mr. Zuckerman had to laugh too, and of course Avery was tickled to find himself so wet. He immediately started acting like a clown. He pretended he was taking a shower, and he made faces and danced around, rubbed imaginary soap under his armpits, and then he dried himself with an imaginary towel. "Avery, stop it," said his mother. "Stop showing off." But the crowd loved it. Avery heard nothing but applause. He liked being a clown in the ring with everyone watching, like a grandstand. When he discovered that there was a little water left in the bottom of the pail, he raised it as high as he could and dumped it on himself, and made faces. The children screamed with appreciation. At last things calmed down. Wilbur was loaded into the truck. Avery was led from the ring by his mother and placed in the seat of the truck to dry off. The truck driven by Mr. Arable crawled slowly back to the pig pen. Avery's wet trousers made a big wet spot right on the seat.